we are gathered today because we all knew and loved Karin, and many of people, Steve as well. I invoke and draw our attention to the divine present with us here today, and to that light which we all shared with Karin, that is present with us here at this honoring of Karin, and as her earthly body is returned to earth to rest beside her beloved Steve. Thank you, Father, Mother, God. We're grateful Karin was in our lives as mother of Neil and Alan, as dear friend, as fellow master gardeners, as co-workers and volunteer colleagues on so many aspects of our wonderful Fairfield life. When a life on earth has ended, those who have shared in it have the blessings of a full heart and cherished memories. Karin drew inspiration from beauty and joy, and as we all know, her greatest joy was in her two dear sons, Neil and Alan.
I didn't expect to be here this soon, and so it's very bittersweet for us to be here because, as some of you may know, my daughter was born just a few days before my mom passed. And so I was expecting to share the birth of my daughter Ava with my mother. And so it's been quite the experience for us. So I just want to take this time to say a few things about what my mother meant to me and what maybe can I speak for Alan too? What he...
You can take off your mask.
Oh, thank you. What she meant to Alan and what she meant to our family and what it means for her, for maybe for some of you. So my mom was a German national. She came from Germany, and I used to hear a great many stories about her and my father and how they met. And she worked with special needs kids, and my dad, he was in the military, and one of his jobs was to take the German people and help them associate with the soldiers there, the military there. And the story had been always told in our family that many people had tried and nobody could do it because the soldiers didn't like the Germans didn't like the soldiers. And I liken it to if you had a bunch of German soldiers here in Fairfield, how would that go? So that was his job. They said, because he at the University of Michigan, one of his majors was German, and so he was able to communicate roughly with the German people, and then that bond strengthened through my mother because my mom would correct my dad on his German a lot. and if you know my mom would correct you on those certain things. So at any rate, so they met through that interaction and through that bonding period, and they became very close with my Uncle Howie, and they developed this amazing bond of love, but not only love, but if I could describe it right, an intellectual pairing that you couldn't quite compare to anything else. With this, at least from my perspective as an adult now, but as a child, I just had this ultimate looking up at my mother as this authoritarian respect level that you didn't cross my mom. So at any rate, my father, what he did to bring the German people and the U.S. soldiers together was he devised bowling leagues, and it worked. So he mixed the groups up together and organized bowling leagues, and then with the help of my mother, got the soldiers and the German people to bowl. And so there was always this great organization, but under that organization and intelligence, there was an amazing kindness that she had and an amazing patience that she had. I mean, if you look at us, you have to have a little bit of patience. So that was a constant theme of structure and organization along with patience. They understood that we were going to make mistakes and that we were going to perhaps go our certain ways and be strong-headed, because if you know anything about German, they're stubborn. We don't typically, or at least my nationality, we don't typically are easygoing, but like to go one certain direction, and that was certainly her. So from Michigan, we moved to Iowa in the early 80s. In 1980, we got in a big RV, the cat. My brother was not quite born, so my mom was pregnant, the cat, myself, in our Plymouth station wagon, and my dad's was driving the Ryder truck from not from Germany, but obviously not from Germany, but from Michigan, all the way down to Fairfield, because he had entered a business association with Bob Walls, and they were going to start Ritom, which was an amazing distribution company. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, but a distribution company here in Fairfield, and he was vice president, Bob was president, and Mom was going to stay home and raise us. And so that was the nexus for us. We came into Fairfield, into that very same home in 807. We're going to go later. And we grew up, and my mother was just the central force behind everything. And she got a business master's degree in Germany, but she also accepted, just as much as intellectually, she accepted us and wanted us to be successful more than herself. So the other thing that I can say about my mother is, and I know a lot of you really well know, she put other people ahead of herself. She always thought of other people first and wanted other people to be successful. She always wanted the town to be successful. She wanted ourselves to be successful and to grow and to love. And so she would put herself often in second place for other people, so that they could grow and prosper. And that's just one thing that for me is just so, it's something that I try and carry forward in with my family in my life, and with Alan and hopefully resonates, is that I had that example, and I had that amazing role model. So as Melinda alluded to, we had this family, and Dad was doing the business, and we were busy, and I was in grade school, in fourth grade. He passed suddenly overnight. I remember one morning I woke up, and Mom asked me to come downstairs, and she told me, and it was like our worlds fell in. And we, there were days I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know how to react to other people. I was fairly young. So it got to be almost a normal to be sad. But my mom only saw her cry maybe twice through that whole period. She was so amazingly strong, and she knew what she needed to do. She had amazing support through the community, but then she knew that the challenges with myself, the challenges with Alan, she took full force. She never complained. She never said anything to the contrary. She never lost her temper. Maybe a couple of times, but so she took us on by herself, and went through the turbulent, troubled teens with me, and stood fast with that, and knew that as long as she helped me kind of overcome myself and my own things, that I would come back. And I remember so vividly dating in my younger years, and it was, you knew within the first 5 minutes whether my mom approved or did not approve. And at one point I was dating a girl in Iowa City, and she had blue hair, spiked blue hair. It's called Liberty Spikes, and they were all over the place. She was a really nice person. But I told my mom about it, and she's like, "Oh, you're going to date Mrs. Smurf. That's who you're going to date." And from there on, it was always Mrs. Smurf. So, my mom she had a certain style that cannot be replicated. It could not be duplicated whatsoever. And the humor, the dry sense of humor. And if you had spent any time with my mom, you knew when she cracked that little smile that it was such a genuine, warm feeling. So so after that point, I left for college and stopped college and went to college and stopped college and went to college, and bounced around and did different things. And she was so patient through all of it. I was living in Iowa City with a bunch of guys in a house, and was on unemployment, and didn't have a job, and didn't have a major, she treated me exactly the same as if I was a Rhodes Scholar. She just had that amazing love and respect, and I've never felt like I wasn't supported by her. I never felt like I wasn't loved by her, through the lowest times and through the highest times. And so I'm just gonna miss her so very much, because and the last thing I'm just gonna kind of end with is that as I came later and I got married and settled down and started looking at things professionally, she loved and adored my children. That was her. She couldn't wait to send them things for Easter. You name the holiday. It could be a minor holiday. She couldn't wait. She would come and she would color Easter eggs with Elijah, my 10-year-old, and buy dresses for Sophia and dance around in the living room. And then she just loved and adored her grandchildren. And it was such a special thing, and they will take that with them for the rest of their lives. Like, that is a gift that you can't buy, you can't easily take off the shelf. Like, that's something that they're going to take for, and something that we're going to have for the rest of our life. So I'm just so grateful for her life and who she was, and the person that she's helped me become. And I'm just going to miss her so very much. And just thank you guys for your time and coming and honoring my mom.
I chose this because it's an excerpt that I think, for me anyway, reminded me that success is measured by the impact that we have on other people around us. And so I've chosen something from just a short paragraph from Fahrenheit 451. Everyone must leave something behind when he dies, my grandfather said. A child or a book, or a painting, or a house, or a wall built, or a pair of shoes made, or a garden planted. Something your hand touched some way so your soul has somewhere to go when you die. And when people look at that tree or that flower, you're there. It doesn't matter what you do, he said, so long as you change something from the way it was before you touched it to something that's like you after your hands are taken away. And to me, this just really epitomized and, accentuates what Neil just said about Karin. For her, family, friends, and community were something that she used all of her talents to support. She was an excellent cook and baker. She was a master gardener. And she had the keen sense of interior design and probably landscape architecture, too. And she, of course, did a marvelous, marvelous job single-handedly raising her two sons, Neil and Alan. So on this Saturday, August 9th, she invites us all to her last big garden party to see her off on her new adventures.
Good morning. For those who don't know me, I'm Linda Pettit and ran Finishing Touch, and Karin worked for me for several years. And we had such fun. The sense of style in Karin was mentioned, and it was just amazing the things she could do and put together. And Neil, to you, I wanted to say she practiced being a grandma on my third son, Mark. Mark got gifts for Easter because he had a good report card, because, Mark, you're here. Would you like some ice cream? Linda, is it okay if I go get Mark an ice cream cone? So anyhow, I know how she must treat your grandchildren because Mark was blessed. We're all blessed. And one other thing that was such fun when you guys all graduated. At the time, there were 4 of us working together at Finishing Touch, and we all had either a son or grandsons graduating. So we took out a big half-page ad in the Ledger and, all the names, their pictures, and said they've put the finishing touch on their education. So she was just such a sweetheart, a heart of gold. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Meredith. I loved Karin, and I knew her in a couple different capacities. One as a master gardener. I moved back to Fairfield about 6 years ago and didn't meet Karin until then. And started the master gardener course maybe a year after that. And hated it. That year it was structured in a way where it was mostly reading based and not a lot of experience, hands-on stuff. I'm a hands-on learner and I didn't like the reading part. And so I would grumble a little bit about it to Karin, who I work with at the at-home store until June. And her reaction was always, "Oh, I loved it. I loved all the reading. I loved all the learning. I loved the studying." And she impressed me every time we talked about it because she had this insatiable appetite for new knowledge and education and bettering herself and learning things. And she was curious and she was so intelligent. And I was always just kind of feeling like a failure next to her in terms of being a gardener. But that's one thing I'll never forget. Oh, I loved it. And then I also just wanted to say Rosie Witherspoon, her boss at the at-home store, wishes so badly she could be here right now. Oh, good. Okay. She wanted to also say how much we loved her. And one of the things that we so appreciated about her at the store was that she was always willing to help. I mean, anytime you needed a shift covered, if she was available, she would say yes, no question. Just always willing to step in every way, from setting up the sidewalk sales to taking on your shift when you needed a little break or were sick or whatever. And with a smile, just totally cheerfully, just ready, stepped in, dressed to the nines. She always looked amazing. How she put her outfits together, matching her glasses, and she was a picture, and I'll never forget her.
Hi, I'm Alita Motti, and I'm one of the Jefferson County Master Gardeners. And Karin and I were in the group together for many, many years. And I just want to say a shout out to Kathy Tollinaire, Jerry Lyon, and Sherry Leisure for helping in the yard. We wanted to keep the yard really nice and pretty for today. And I know that Karin would be very, very happy about that. And we, every year, her and I did, when it first started, we did Baby at the Barns. Oh, did she love the babies at the barn. She wanted to take all the little baby animals home with her. And we had so much fun. So the Master Gardeners, we're going to get a hold of Tony Webb. He is head out there. And we're going to put a bench or something in her honor out there wherever he tells us that we can do that. So we'll miss her terribly. When we did our potlucks, her desserts were to die for. So she will be very missed by all of us. Thank you.
I'm Sally Johnston, but a long time ago I was Sally Neff, and I was a kindergarten teacher at Washington School. And I met Karin when she brought Neil to school on the first day of kindergarten. And, you know, as you just said, she looked beautiful. And he was dressed to the hilt to come to school. And a couple days later, she said, "I think maybe we need to do a little changing here with Neil's wardrobe." And she said, "What should I get?" And I said, "Jeans and tennis shoes." So she did. She just wanted him, she wanted him to fit right in with the other boys, and it worked. One time for show and tell, or sharing as we called it, Neil brought a picture of a gorgeous castle, and he says, "This is Oma and Opa's castle." I went, "Wow." Oh, maybe I should get a little better acquainted. But I asked Karin about that. I said, your parents have a castle? And she goes, no. She said that castle is in the town where they live, but Neil had me believing that it was their castle. We always kept in touch because not only was Jim Pettit in Neil's class, but so was my daughter Betsy. And we kept in touch a lot about how those kids were growing up and marrying and having families. And when I began to have grandchildren, she was just so happy for me. And then when all of a sudden she got to be a grandma too, it was like the world opened up. She was just a wonderful person. A few years ago, I had an incident where I had a broken hip and I was laid up for about 2 months. And she called and said, could I bring dessert? Yeah, of course you can. Somewhere I have a picture of the gorgeous cake that she brought over with the raspberries all around it and everything. And my friend suddenly wanted to come and share dessert with us. But she was such a sweetheart. And I just know, as you said, that those grandchildren meant almost as much to her as you and Alan did. Almost. So I'm very glad to be able to be here and say hi.
I signed up to get up here just so I could take my mask off. Just so you know. So I'm Nancy Horace, for those of you that might not know me. Nancy Horace. And actually, I got to know Karin, I think initially, it was through the Art Association. And but then it became like many other things that we both enjoyed, including a stint on the board at the Fairfield Golf and Country Club, which this really fabulous lady that some of you may have known, Jackie Parkin, basically orchestrated after she had observed some of the other things that we had been doing with the Art Association and said, so I talked to Karin and she said, if you'll do it, she'll do it. And then she talked to me, anyway, and vice versa. And so that's how she got both of us to sign up for that thing, that gig. And then there was beautification, and I can't even remember all the different things that we worked on together. Neil probably remembers me as the person that would keep his mother occupied on the telephone for for great lengths of time. Correct, Neil? Yes. He'd go, oh, that's Mrs. Horace. Okay. Anyway, because we had this serious business of these things that we did, and we actually kind of joked to each other about not only did we not get paid to do these things, we got really good. We started to pay to not get paid. Every single thing we signed up to help out with. Now Girl Scout troop leader even, you have to pay to become one of them. So anyway, so we had a little inside joke with the two of us that's how bright we were. So anyway. But I loved Karin, and I'm going to miss her. Everybody's already captured, kind of her personality and her spirit, and I love every bit of it. So, anyway,
I was going to have Nancy help tell the story of being on the Beautification Commission, and I should be used to this.
Is that a little better?
Yeah, I'll get closer. All right. So we were on the beautification together. Alita was too afterwards. But we had a project on Burlington Avenue across from Taco John's, and we had it planted to cover up the Alliant site that was a little bit not nice to look at. And after a few years, it grew, and we had to weed a lot and take care of it, and we did it ourselves. So we're there, and then somebody told us, there are some people in the prison that you can get to help. So we thought, okay, we'll give this a try. Well, Karin ended up being the one to monitor them. And she's standing out on the main street, beautifully dressed, a hat, nice shoes, and she's trying to explain to these guys, I don't know if they were in orange or stripes or what, but she was trying to explain to them how to weed and trim. And as she was reporting this back to our board meeting, she said, it was just worthless.
And didn't you say she was demonstrating?
Yeah, she was trying to demonstrate how to do it too. So, Karin, I don't know why this has hit me really hard. I will miss her terribly.
Neil and Alan, welcome back to Fairfield. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ed Malloy, former mayor of Fairfield. And, we are here, and it's been so eloquently expressed today, to really honor an incredible personality, an incredible woman, a woman of deep impact on people that she comes in contact with. And she really touched many, many people in Fairfield. There's a great sadness now that she's gone. But I love what you've written, Terry, or what you read, because she did leave a lot behind. There's no question about it. She left it behind through the work of all the associations she was with. She left it behind with all of the beautiful physical things that she did. But being around her was just a pleasure, an absolute pleasure, because she had kind of a personal confidence that wasn't too strong, but it was there. There was a confidence that was there in herself and who she was and what she represented. And out of that came all of the beautiful parts of her personality that were expressed that we all came to enjoy. And, I had the pleasure, the honor of working in two different areas with Karin. And one was the Beautification Commission that she just really took on again with great leadership and great presence and great commitment, and did so many things with Nancy and Alita and Susan and so many others. That it transformed our community. There's no question about it. She is a part of the foundation of all of that. And I love being in meetings with Karin because that business side of her came out also. I didn't realize that she had a business degree, but when you were in a meeting with Karin, there were expectations about how the meeting would flow, and how what would be accomplished, and the right goals were set and the action steps, and she was marching out of that meeting with something to do, and everyone else as well. She showed me personally such great respect. I never heard her call me by my first name, Ed. It was always Mr. Mayor. And so that leads me to the second honor that I had of sharing with her every year, and that was Oktoberfest, because she was going to be sure that we honored the tradition of Oktoberfest to have the Burgermeister open up the event. And I was a little reticent about that when I first kind of learned about it, because I'm going to ride in a carriage around the square a couple of times before getting off and tapping an empty keg. But Karin made it real because she rode with me in that carriage. So she really, took that cultural integrity of this German tradition and planted it right there on our square. And we celebrated that, and everyone had that feeling of honor. This wasn't an ordinary Oktoberfest where people just wanted to get to the beer. This was celebrating an old, rich German tradition. But this probably bothered her a little bit, but she would never show it. The Burgermeister has one statement to make when the keg is tapped. And it's three simple German words that I'll probably botch today as well. But I had to ask her every year, Karin, what are those again? So, Opas is what's stated after the keg is tapped, which means it's time to begin. And I could always look over at Karin and see, her heart was warm when I got the words right. If I ever got the words right, she probably never let me know. But what a delightful, delightful woman and personality, and we're so glad she was here to touch all of our lives.
I'll share something Teresa Chattel told me. Teresa is a long time friend of Karin. She's moved out of state, I don't know, more than 10 years ago maybe. But they've stayed in touch. They talked once a week on the phone at least. And she told me that this spring, when it was warm enough to be outside, because Karin loved to sit out on her front porch and just enjoy the sounds of nature, maybe with a little NPR classical music playing out there in the background. But that Teresa told me that Karin told her this from this spring. As soon as it was warm enough to sit out there on the porch, she was out there, and she was just being in the silence, and then she heard this kind of slurping sound, and she thought, what? And she listened and listened, and then she looked around very carefully, and then she saw some squirrels, and they were licking the sap on the tree in front of the house, and it was making this slurping sound. And she just took a delight in that. So Teresa asked me to tell that little story as we were out here surrounded by the breeze and the trees and the nature. Well, as we've all been saying, our lives are richer, Karin, for having shared in your life. And we glow in gratitude and send you our love. You've done your job of radiating the divine in your life, and your light will always be with us, and your smile will always remain in the portals of our hearts. Thank you, God. From earth and stardust we are made, and to earth and stardust we return.